So welcome all for this malware analysis, and I'm J. Lavinia, Assistant Professor of CS Department. Today in this video, we are going to discuss on the topic called malware attack life cycle. So what is meant by malware attack life cycle? Yeah. So malware attack life cycle is nothing but it refers to the way to infiltrate an organization network or exploit data. They follow the series of stages that compromise the attack lifecycle. For attackers to successfully complete an attack, they must progress through each stage, right? So that is why this malware attack lifecycle is also known as cyber kill chain, and it is a framework that describes the stages attackers go through to compromise a system and achieve their objectives. To protect a company's network and data from attack, prevention must occur at each stage to block the attacker's ability to access and move laterally within the organization or to steal some sensitive data. The following are one of the different stages of attack life cycle and steps that should be taken to prevent an attack at each stage. Okay, so let us see. So these are the stages of cyber attack life cycle. So the first one is that reconnaissance, second one weaponization, third one delivery, fourth one exploitation, fifth one installation, and sixth one command and control, and seventh one is that action on objectives. So here in each and every stage there are totally 7 stages, right? As we are moving through each and every stage, these attack life cycle will be working on it. So the reconnaissance is where we have to scan the environment or harvesting information from the social media. In short form, I'm just scripting out. In weaponization, pairing malicious code with an exploit to create a weapon that is a piece of malware. And delivery, transmission of weapon or malware to a target, example like via email or USB or the website. And exploitation here, once the delivered, the weapons or malware the code is triggered upon an action. So this in turn exploits the vulnerability. And installation, the weapon installs malware on the system. And the sixth one, a command channel for remote manipulation of the victim. And last one, with hands-on access, the attacker will achieve their objective. Okay. So first, let us see in the reconnaissance. Okay. So cybersecurity and data breaches are an ever-present threat to our digital lives. With the looming possibility of cyber attack, it may seem like there is a little or we can do to prevent this from happening. Without a proactive approach, this can be true. So despite the distilled information we get after a corporation suffers a cyber attack, so this process takes place over several stages, compromising the cyber attack life cycle. Knowing the stages of the cyber attack life cycle, which can make all the difference in keeping bad actors from gaining network or the system access. So according to Palo Alto Networks, there are 6 stages as we have discussed in the previous diagram. So any bad actor wanting to launch a successful cyber attack must move through each stage. A failure at any one stage results in an unsuccessful cyber attack. So however, if a company is endeavored that its network or system are under attack, this could allow its adversaries to continue trying to gain access. The first one is their reconnaissance. So here, during the first stage of the attack life cycle, cyber advisors carefully plan their method of attack. They research, identify, and select the targets that will allow them to meet their objectives. Attackers gather intel through publicly available sources such as Twitter, LinkedIn, and some corporate websites. They will also scan for some vulnerabilities that can be exploited within the target network, services, and applications, which maps out areas where they can take advantage. So, at this stage, attackers are looking for weakness based on some human as well as some systems perspective. Like we perform continuous inspection of network traffic that flows to detect and prevent port scans and host sweeps, which implements the security awareness training so users are mindful about what should and should not be posted, sensitive documents, customer lists, as well as event attendees' job roles and responsibilities. That is like using some specific security tools within an organization. Okay? And advanced advisories will conduct a reconnaissance mission, like scoping out of the campaign, gathering valuable information, and creating a plan of attack. So, a well-conducted cybersecurity education program can help the employees stay alert. As a popular saying goes, time spent in reconnaissance is seldom wasted. An advisory group called Frying Pan identified A to Z health services as the next victim, and Jim, a records and finance specialist, was their next target. Using some social engineering concept, their frying pan was able to gather victim identity information such as personal emails. So here the cyber advisories could gather intelligence through website to specify the target or to gather emails or to send to and from employees. The recognizes space includes research and intelligence gathering on network or data security and within some relevant applications to the particular website code. Okay, so this is all about the reconnaissance. Next one is that weaponization and delivery. Okay. So here in weaponization and delivery, attackers will then determine which methods to use in order to deliver some malicious payload. Okay. We all know that after completing the reconnaissance stage, the next stage will be of weaponization, as we have discussed in the diagram. Okay, so here also we know like there are some cases where it uses some automated tools such as exploit kits, spear phishing attack with some malicious link or attachments, and malwareization. So the delivery phase of the weaponization stage can vary, but generally includes email phishing, a virus-based links, or some malicious attachment. So, like gain full visibility into all traffic, including SSL, and block high risk applications and extend those protection to remote and mobile devices. Protect against perimeter breaches by blocking malicious or risky websites through some URL filtering. Block the known exploits, malware, and inbound command and control communications using multiple threat prevention disciplines, including IPS, anti-malware, anti-CMC, DNS monitoring, and sync hauling, and file and content blocking. We have to detect some unknown malware and atomically delivered protections globally to thread new attacks. We have to provide some ongoing education to users on some spear phishing link or some unknown email and risky websites, etc. In many cases, it takes a one user to open a bad link or download and install some malicious malware to provide access to the system. So here, after identifying the entry vectors, advisors will attempt to gain initial access into the networks with common techniques like using a valid account can be thwarted with some two-factor authentication or some password rotation. So unfortunately for Jim, a spear phishing campaign was not caught by his email security tool. So to reduce this in the future, Alex team can cause AI-driven quantities from Zscaler, Cloud Sandbox to analyze and block some suspicious files, even when malware is delivered over some HTTPS and encrypted protocol. and from a translated trusted vector or program including Google Drive and Microsoft OneDrive. By spoofing a trusted relationship, you know, with the vendor, like Jim clicked on the link for an overdue invoice that promoted an Excel file containing a malicious macro to be downloaded. The endpoint detection and response and antivirus scanner did not recognize any known signature or the behavior. So this is all about the initial access, the weaponization, as well as the delivery. Okay. Next one is that exploitation. So in this stage, attackers deploy an exploit against a vulnerable application or system, which typically uses and exploit kit or a weaponization document. This allows attackers to gain an initial entry point into the organization and block known and unknown vulnerability exploits on the endpoint, which automatically delivers the new protection globally to threat follow-up attacks. And this stage success of the adversary first entry into the organization, similar to gaining a foothold on a breach and turning into a staging area. Okay. And here also, if we take this advisories have gotten through the doors multiple tactics which can be operated simultaneously depending on the attacker's objective. So for prime pan, they want to execute some malware on the gym's local system by having the macro prompt a download of malicious dynamic link libraries, that's DLL, to be installed. A solid EDR and security information event management should have been activated to identify a compromise in progress and alert the appropriate teams for Zscaler internet access. Users with some advanced cloud sandbox, the inline content inspection identifies an unknown potential threat which analyzes the content and terminates some malicious connections. Okay, like if you take some like example, like exploit kits, you can go for it. Like attackers often use some exploit kits which are pre-packaged tools designed to automate the process of finding and exploiting some vulnerabilities or a victim system. And once a vulnerability is found, this attackers delivers a malicious payload which could be malware like viruses, worms, or trojans. Examples of exploitation is that buffer overflows, sending rich more data than a program is expected, and potentially overwriting parts of the program's memory and executing malicious code. And SQL injection, injecting a malicious SQL code into a web application's database query, potentially gaining unauthorized access to data. And cross-site scripting, that is we used to call as some XSS, right? So here, injecting malicious scripts into websites, which can then be executed by other users who visit the site. So phishing, which tracks the users into some revealing some sensitive information, such as password or financial details, through some deceptive emails or the websites. Okay. So the next stage is that installation. Okay. So here in this installation, much like the end of the like the end of the exploitation stage, installation is when the delivery devices and the malicious malware do the job of compromising the desired area. Okay, and installation stage, primary goal is not to gain access of to the desired data, but to provide a secure connection to the network or a system advisories. Okay, and thereby for the advisors to begin the network. So once they have established an initial foothold, attackers will install malware in order to conduct further operations such as maintaining access persistence, and escalating privileges. So we have to prevent the malware installation unknown on the endpoint, network, and cloud services. We have to establish the secure zones with strictly enforced user access control and provide some ongoing monitoring inspection of all traffic between the zones. So that is called as zero trust model. We have to limit the local admin access of the users, and we have to train the users, right, to identify the signs of a malware infection and know how to follow up if something has occurred. And here, now that the adversaries have gotten through the doors, multiple tactics can be operated simultaneously, right, depending on the attacker's objective. So, for frying pan, they want to execute some malware on Jim's local system by having the macro prompted a download of malicious dynamic link libraries that's relatively installed. A solid EDR and security information event management should have been activated for this case. In order to for scalar internet access to the ZIA users with some advanced cloud sandbox. The inline content of an inspection identifies an unknown potential threat, which analyzes the content and terminates some malicious connection. Okay, and next is that command and control. Okay, so like weaponization and delivery, command and control are sometimes separated, but they're closely related. So here with a malware install, attackers now own both sides of the connection, the malicious infrastructure and the infected mission. Okay, they can now actively control the system, instructing the next stage of a attack. And attackers will establish a command channel in order to communicate and pass the data back and forth between the infected devices and their own infrastructure. So here, while the name of the state may elicit military overtones, this state does precisely what it sounds like. Okay, the adversaries are now in command on each side of the established connection and execute their attack plans. And the attackers begin extracting private information or sensitive data and gathering it on their end. And they block outbound or command and control communications as well as file and data pattern uploads, which redirect malicious outbound communication to internal sinkholes to identify and block the compromised host, which blocks the outbound communication to non-malicious URL through some URL filtering, and which creates a database of malicious domain to ensure the global awareness and prevention through some DNS monitoring. Okay, which limits the attacker's ability to move laterally with some unknown tools and scripts by implementing granular control applications to allow only some authorized application. Okay, and here, to maintain the continuous access and evade detection, advisors require some account names and passwords. Like in the security team, they have determined the triumph and obtain some user credentials through some password stores and brute force attack that that will ultimately led them to a more privileged user with the domain control access. After changing the configuration that mediate and respond to some security authenticate requests, a frying pan cleared the path through some A to Z's network and system. Unfortunately for Alex, and A to Z, the access management and VPN solutions were bypassed, and they did not have a user to app and workload to workload segmentation and to record or to stop the spread infection. Okay, so this all comes under the command and control. And the last one but not least is that actions So perhaps not the best title stage. This is when advisories take action steps to achieve their original intent. And now that the advisories have control, persistence, and ongoing communication, they will act upon their motivations in order to achieve their goal. So this could be the data exfiltration, destruction of critical infrastructure, to deface the web property, or to create some fear or the means for some extortion. So proactively hunt for some indicators of compromise on the network using some threat intelligence tools. And we have to build the bridges between the security operations center that we used to call as a SOC and the network operations center to put the right prevention-based controls in place. And we have to monitor and inspect all traffic between the zones and enforce user access control for the secure zones. And we have to block outbound command and control communications as well as file and data pattern uploads. We have to block and outbound communications to non-malicious URL through some URL filtering. And you have to implement like granular control of applications and user control to enforce the file transfer application policies on the enterprise, eliminating non-archiving and transfer tactics and limiting the attacker's ability to move laterally with some unknown tools and scripts. Sometimes these are highly publicized attacks where a prominent website is changed or defaced to push an agenda or embarrass a person or a company or hold some stolen data for the ransom. Other times, the general public, one which hears about the data breach weeks or months after the attack. So, disrupting the attack lifecycle relies on not only the technology but the people and the process. So, the people must receive ongoing security awareness training and be educated in best practices to minimize the likelihood of an attack progressing past the first stage. And there must be processes and policies in place for remediation should an attacker successfully progress through the entire attack lifecycle. Okay. And one more thing I would like to state is that similar to the reconnaissance state, the advisors of security, uh, what they will be doing is that they gather significant information. However, unlike the earlier stage, the data collected is intended to be used for other nefarious purposes such as extortion, a cloud access security broker, that is CASB, with data loss prevention DLP, which can be a step in preventing some oversharing and block the data exfiltration. Okay. The collection stage was where the Alex was first noted suspicious network activities from the patient record system, including accessing the system during some non-work hours in geographic disparate location that indicates the impossible travel. So after some more digging, it becomes clear that exploitation techniques have not begun, while some advisors stop here intending to leave a backdoor open to collect and steal more data or some intellectual property. Okay. And one example, like a real world example of a cyber attack, I would like to state here is that recently Apple, pushed out a critical security patch update for their iOS operating system to correct a security vulnerability that exploited a significant flaw. So the security update addressed the ability 0-day, zero exploit virus Pegasus to gain unfettered access to an Apple device running iOS version that is 14.7.1. The most troubling aspect of this virus was that the user didn't have to do anything on the device for the exploit to happen, right? So once infected, the Pegasus virus would have access to the files and data on the devices and could capture some text, email, and phone calls, then share them with some any bad actor worldwide. Okay. The worst part was that any user with an infected device would have no idea. So, the Pegasus virus is a prime example of successfully implementing the cyber attack lifecycle. So, it's also a stark reminder that cybersecurity experts must always be vigilant. So city individuals or organization constantly it has to seek now ways to create or discover and then exploit some security vulnerabilities. So why we are going for these kind of stages? So what is the why the cyber attack life cycle is very important to understand. This cyber attack life cycle is also known as cyber phishing. So understanding this life cycle is crucial because it has to it helps the organization to recognize the tactics, techniques, and procedures which is used by the attackers at each stage. So, by identifying and disrupting these stages, organizations can prevent or mitigate the impact of an attack before it reaches its final stage. So, one of the most effective strategies to disrupt the reconnaissance phase is that to disrupt the reconnaissance phase of a cyber attack, organizations can implement strategies such as a network obfuscation, deploying honeypots, and using some deception technologies to mislead attackers. Additionally, keeping publicly accessible information about the organization's infrastructure minimal and monitoring for some unusual scanning or probing activities, which can help identify and fed reconnaissance attempts before they progress to the next stage of the attack. And how does segmentation play a role in breaking the cyber attack lifecycle? The main thing is that network segmentation is critical in breaking the cyber attack lifecycle by limiting an attacker's ability to move laterally in an organization network by dividing the network into some isolated segments, each with its security controls. So the organization can contain breaches and prevent attackers from accessing additional resources or some sensitive data. So even an attacker compromises one segment, a segmentation ensures the damage is contained, making it harder for the attack to progress through the life cycle. Okay. So in this particular video, we had discussed about what is meant by malware attack life cycle and why it is needed to prevent some security threats. And we have seen about the stages involved in this particular malware attack life cycle, like reconnaissance and weaponization and delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, actions on the objective. Okay, so all those things comes under this particular reconnaissance stage. And one thing I would like to add, and we have also discussed about the malware attack lifecycle real life example, right? So before wind up in the session, we shall see what are the advantages of using these kind of malware attack lifecycle, like financial gain, data theft, disruption of services or control system. And if you go for the disadvantages of attackers, detection and removal, complexity, legal consequences, and involving some defenses. So all those things comes under the drawbacks. I hope this video will be very useful. We will see in the next video. So thank you all.